Hi, y'all. Meteorologist Andy Hill here at the forecasting desk. Right on time for my last video, we're going to enter another period of unsettled weather. We've got another couple rounds of severe storms on the way over the next week. I hope a lot of you have been enjoying the last calmer week of spring, many days off of that severe weather for most of us. Of course, in our off time, a lot of us have been going through fire weather due to gusty winds from the southwest that mix down to the surface. Those gusty southwest winds have hot, dry air with them while they mix down to the surface. And for all of us experiencing this hot, dry weather, that's thanks in part to this pattern called a Rex block, where we have this low pressure swirling around here for a few days right there in the middle there, and a ridge of high pressure all around to the north of it, where in these oranges and reds here. That's led to a bunch of red flag warnings around the north edge of this arc. For many who don't typically see them, let me know if you got a red flag warning on your phone recently. Some of us, especially y'all in the northeast, southern Ontario, and Quebec here, are going to be in what feels like June and July temperatures for a few more days this week. We'll be cooking over here, but this pattern will flip. The low pressure swirling around down here is going to be absorbed into the ridge over the next couple of days and will peter out, thus getting rid of our block and allowing the next big trough from the west to come in. Now, not just this one, but a couple of these pattern flips will be heading through the US over the next week, but there will also be some longer term patterns that we need to be aware of as well. I'm going to talk about the severe weather in question first, but pay attention later on in this video to what's going on around the world that may impact us down the line. So our very next pattern flip comes with the chance for some significant severe weather, especially since the max temperatures each day over here are going to be in the 80s Fahrenheit, and it's going to switch over to the 50s and 60s Fahrenheit once this cold front passes through. You can see that in the blue there. That gradient, or difference in temperature across this area, will certainly fuel thunderstorms all along that cold front sweeping through the states. We'll take a look at the ingredients in depth for each day to understand what severe hazards are in place, whether we'll see big hail, wind, or tornadoes. So, you may have seen a severe weather outlook a few days ago that highlighted parts of Oklahoma City, Dallas, Fort Worth, and even down to Austin, Texas. Well, that's for today, Friday. This is what the Storm Prediction Center graphic looks like now for today. This area in yellow is going to be for damaging hail and winds as a complex of storms moves through the mid-Great Plains. But what happened to the rest of the risk? You can see that cap again along this red line, or our temperature as we go up in height with the atmosphere. This cap is preventing most everything from blowing up down here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma City, because otherwise, if this wasn't in place, there's an alright blend of moisture and dynamics, or our winds, in place today. I'm sure y'all can feel the mugginess out there today as well. That would be our severe weather if this lid on the atmosphere wasn't in place. This won't be the case for tomorrow, Saturday, April 15th. That date sounds familiar. I think I mentioned it around this time in my last forecast video a couple weeks ago. So here's our outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. In the orange here is our enhanced risk, or 3 out of 5 level for severe weather. On the western edge of this includes the threat for significant hail earlier in the day, about late afternoon to evening. And on the eastern edge of the orange here is when we get the wind risk, when all the storms have congealed into a line and are being pushed forward by that cold front. The tornado threat is slight here in this brown area, but still does exist. Initially, we could see some tornado threat with some supercells that develop and are discrete for a couple of hours in these areas. But later down the line, we're really going to have to be looking for spin-up tornadoes in these areas along the front. This risk was recently expanded more to the north while I was making this forecast video, which I agree with, and I would have highlighted this myself had it not changed, and I'll show you guys why. Through the day Saturday, the moisture in place really looks good here at the surface. It'll definitely feel like a severe weather day out there in Arkansas, Missouri, northern Louisiana, and even into parts of Illinois. You can see this area of blue in our surface dew point map expanding all the way up into central and even northern Illinois on Saturday evening. These are our 60-degree Fahrenheit dew points, or about what we look for in a ripe environment for severe weather. So I'll show you what the atmosphere looks like over St. Louis here Wednesday evening. So we have this area that I'm shading in here. That's our CAPE, or our instability, convective available potential energy. We have quite a bit of it, 2,000 joules per kilogram. And that cold front sweeping through is going to take advantage of this, and there's going to be thunder boomers. That's what this tells me. And that slight potential for tornadoes this far north is realized, as the sounding tells us that there is a chance for tornadoes indicated here. As long as we have the forcing in place to create those storms, this tornado potential can be realized. Here's a look at another sounding from a different model in the same place on Wednesday evening for St. Louis. Again, we see that convective available potential energy in spades here, and also the possible hazard type of a tornado if realized. This also comes in play due to this photograph, which we can see a little bit of curve with height with our winds. That's going to accentuate our tornado threat here. And here it is. You can see our wind and hailstorms develop really quickly there in Kansas and Nebraska later today into tonight. They travel across Missouri here through the morning and into noontime on Saturday. These won't be the main severe threat. Missouri's going to get 2 rounds of severe weather on Saturday. So this round of storms will start off in the late afternoon to evening as a bunch of messy supercells there in Arkansas and Missouri. That will include all hazards possible, including large hail, some tornadoes, and damaging wind. We might see hail up to apple size fall in some of these areas here where these supercells are developing. And it looks like most of the supercells will develop on the western edge of this slight risk in yellow here as they track into the enhanced risk in orange. Then, quickly, they accumulate into the cold frontal line of storms, strong line of storms moving through these areas in the evening hours. They get propelled forward very quickly here. This is 9 p.m. on Saturday. Storms are going to be moving through Jonesboro, Arkansas, St. Louis, Missouri, Springfield, Illinois, and Davenport, Iowa, all the way down to Shreveport. This is when we're going to see that risk for a few spin-up tornadoes here along the line. But for most everyone, it's just going to be a bunch of nasty, squally winds moving through. We'll be watching tomorrow, however, wherever the line is strongest locally is the chance we could see those spin-up tornadoes on the northern edge of the bow echoes. So wherever the lines look like a bow and arrow there, on that northern edge, we can see the spin. But watch how quickly the line of storms loses steam as we go into the night. Once it's past Memphis up north into eastern Illinois, I think we don't have to worry so much about the severe risks anymore, and it's just going to turn into a rainy line of blah through the morning hours. Now, as we move into Sunday, a lot of people are going to be in a marginal risk, from the mitten of Michigan through northeast Indiana, Ohio, all the way down into Georgia and Florida. Now, these risks are subject to change and may be upgraded through the day, as we already see some upgrades down here into Georgia for a slight risk, or a 2 out of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center. I bet we might see some slight risks up north here in Ohio if the hot temperatures give way to a lot more instability in this region than we currently see. I think the tornado threat on this day will remain quite low, as currently our dynamic support, or our winds, are going to be rather meager through the day on Sunday. This is a map similar to what you may have heard of as nadir juice. So down here in Georgia, where our slight risk is, we have winds expected to be blowing uniformly from the west as we go up with height in the atmosphere. This will result in a distinct lack of rotation for any storms that do develop down here, rather causing them to become infamous wind bags. Heavy wind and rain down here on Sunday. Up north into Ohio, we have some of our nadir juice coming in from the south and being tilted to the southwest as we go up with height. But the winds up here aren't really that impressive. We only see these blues here, which are just about 35 miles an hour or so. So those winds being really light out in front of our trough and our cold front means that severe threats up here through the day will be isolated. Organized severe storms are not going to be favored up here. They will come through at some point, though, with that cold front. Now let me startle you a bit. Snow. That's right, not all of us are done with this late winter yet. In fact, some of these snow totals look huge. What the heck? A foot of snow in western Wisconsin here in the driftless area? No, don't worry. There may be some heavy mixed precipitation at times up here in the upper Midwest through Sunday and Monday, but it's not really going to stick. This model shows you the expected snow accumulation, the expected ratio of snowfall to liquid. You can see that on that previous map, areas that had upwards of 10 to 12 inches of snow only have 1 to 2 inches here. And that's because our surface temperatures are pretty close to freezing. We also had really warm temperatures recently, so the ground is still going to be a lot warmer. But even still, travel plans may be impacted here in the upper Midwest on Sunday into Monday on the back end of this low pressure system. So have it in mind if you're going to travel up here. The biggest difference this weekend is that you're going to feel the change in temperatures as that cold front moves through, eventually reaching the northeast and southeastern Canada. But warm air is going to start building back into the plains here next Wednesday. And a lot of us are going to see those early summertime temperatures again here into late next week before another cold front will swing through and drop those temps once again. It's spring, y'all. Transitional period. Cold, warm, cold, warm. There's another thing, though. This next storm system into next week already has a little bit more of a telltale sign of a classical severe weather setup in terms of expected severe weather activity in the plains. So take a look at the instability expected to start building up into the plains on Wednesday and staying in place over the next few days here in the Great Plains and also into the Mississippi River Valley. This has led to already a day 7 risk from the Storm Prediction Center roughly in these areas here that are in place for severe storms expected to pop up along the dry line, which you can actually see on this map. So based on this model data, I bet we'll see an active period for a few days of severe weather in these areas into next weekend. So we can see our initial low pressure center develop here in the high plains next Thursday, April 20th. That moves off to the north and east, and then we see another low pressure system develop in the southern high plains back behind it. That may bring about that next round of severe weather in those areas as it goes off to the north and east. And this low pressure system may bring about exactly that case of severe weather over here, and then perhaps into the upper Midwest again, also bringing snow to the Dakotas again as our next big time spring weather system. So I'd be paying attention to the weather in the plains over the next week or so as we get closer, and then down the line, you're going to want to see what happens in the plains if you're in the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley, Mississippi River Valley. The hope is that after that, toward the end of this month, we have another calm period, much like the period between the last video I uploaded and this one. Once we get to April 25th here, there's not a lot of waviness on this map. This is good to prevent severe weather outbreaks. This is our zonal flow where we have flow mostly just moving west to east. There's not big amplitude ridges and troughs going through here. And so that's going to mute our severe weather threat for these areas as we go into the end of the month. This is also reflected in the Climate Prediction Center's map, which just shows a couple of areas of heavy precipitation expected in the southeast and also again in the Pacific Northwest from the period about 1 to 2 weeks out from now. All of these areas in gray are expected flooding risks, which are actually already ongoing from melting snow here in the northern plains, as well as the Sierra. Now, let's take a look at some longer-term signals. It's starting to enter the news cycle now. I'm sure you've heard of it. El Niño. A month ago, I shelved this forecast from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia for August this year. Their model was showing a strong El Niño developing into August compared to everything else at that time a month ago. Now today, it looks like their forecast is gaining a lot of credibility, as a lot of our other models here are catching up with the strong El Niño prediction while they stay on top. So at this point, a moderate El Niño is practically guaranteed as we go into the later part of this year, and a strong one is not out of the question. This is true because we're seeing the beginning stages of this effect, as air temperatures and sea surface temperatures are already cooking off the coast of Peru and Ecuador, and these temps are going to move to the west with time into our El Niño index areas. So, infamous question, what does that mean for us? Well, thanks to climatologist Brian Brettschneider, we have the results for a developing moderate to strong El Niño specifically for the summer months, based on 16 years of past data as El Niños developed during this time. Now, for expected difference in temperatures, there isn't really a lot to say, and that's because El Niño is just one thing of many ongoing, simultaneously, that impacts our weather. However, there are a few things to look at for the summer months in particular here. There's a very strong signal for above average temperatures from the Pacific Northwest, Vancouver, and up the British Columbia coast and the Alaska Peninsula during events like this upcoming El Niño. And rainfall-wise, we see a corresponding decrease in total rain for the Pacific Northwest in these same months. There's also a signal for a less active monsoon season for the Phoenix metro area and to the west in Arizona, but this is something that's impossible to forecast precisely. So we'll see if this area does actually receive less rain during the monsoon season this year. Beyond that, the mid-south and parts of northern Texas seem to get a lot more rain than average in the summer months during these stronger El Niño years. You may see this area along California and Baja California Peninsula, but this is insignificant in terms of precipitation, as during the summer months, there's hardly ever any rain to begin with over here, so the changes here are not going to be that much. You may also have heard that El Niño tends to give us a less active hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin. This is definitely true, and a lot of seasonal forecasts from NOAA, Colorado State University, and so forth are going to reflect this lower hurricane count, but also take other factors into account, such as warmer than average sea surface temperatures. But that doesn't mean at all that one significantly impactful landfalling hurricane in the States won't happen. I don't know if it will happen either, but El Nino does not tell us whether that hurricane will develop and impacts the states. So it warrants watching all the same, like we did with Ian last year. To end this video off, let me show you Cyclone Ilsa, which impacted very rural northwestern Australia yesterday as an Australian Category 5 severe cyclone, and also a Category 5 hurricane equivalent per the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. It's now dissipating inland. However, we can see it lasted quite some time inland as hurricane strength due to this barren brown landscape in this part of the country. So what's happening here is rainfall ahead of the eye of the storm as it traveled to the southeast here made the brown soil wet. And due to the heat in this area, the hot and wet soil continued to feed some energy into the cyclone while it was over land. This is called the brown ocean effect, and it actually happens quite often over in these areas for landfalling cyclones. I've linked a study on it in the description of this video for any curious readers. This is represented nicely from this previous forecast from the Euro model. You can see the cyclone landfalling here and actually maintaining strength for a good amount of time inland before getting caught up and dissipating. This doesn't mean that the cyclone is going to maintain its strength as a Category 5, but rather it's going to dissipate much more slowly because it still has some energy being fed into it over time from this landscape. The closest equivalent to that we have here in the States are the marshes of Louisiana. Those areas of southern Louisiana assisted Hurricanes Ida, Laura, and Delta in previous years as they moved inland. But thankfully, hurricanes really lose their strength much more rapidly as they go inland in the States here compared to northwestern Australia. And that's all I've got for you today. If tomorrow's severe risk is upgraded, it may warrant a live stream for nowcasting coverage. So stay tuned. If it does get upgraded, I'll be here for you.